So to introduce your host for today or your facilitator with the speakers, I'm going to introduce Madeline Godet. She is the president of the Stepping Stone Senior Center, an activity center for the 50 plus population in Greater Fredericton. She is a member of the Fredericton Age Friendly Committee, the Fredericton Police Senior Advisory Committee, and the Senior Wellness Action Group under the Greater Fredericton Social Innovation. Madeline is a retired registered nurse, a past president of the New Brunswick Nurses Union, and a former labor relations officer with NBNU. So, Madeline, I'm going to pass the screen over to you.
It is an honor for me to share this time with you on International Day of the Older Person. For our first presenter is Louise Como, a senior advisor with Carleton University Center for Climate Change Communications and Public Engagement. She's also a member of the Federal Net Zero Advisory Board. Louise has more than 30 years' experience in climate change policy, communications, and solutions-related advocacy and programming. Louise holds a doctorate in environmental management focused on environmental ethics and behavior change from the University of New Brunswick. Louise, I turn it over to you.
To just lay the groundwork for those of you that may not think about climate change every day, to give you a sense of what the problem actually is, what the scale of the issue is, and what it is that we actually have to do to resolve it, which will then lead into what Dr. Turcotte and Jane will talk to you about in terms of their contributions to this webinar. What I'm going to talk about, it may look like it's a bit busy. I'm just moving things off screen a little bit. Let's start on what my left side of the screen looks like. Then we're going to talk about the middle part of the figure, and then we're going to talk about the right-hand side of the figure. So let's start with the left-hand side, which shows the kinds of activities that we just do every single day that we've been doing increasingly, really, since World War II. They call it, in fact, the Great Acceleration, that period of growth economically, from a population perspective, massive growth in consumption and commodity production. And it involves, in order to do the things we do every day, a lot of burning stuff. And so whether it's gasoline that we're producing, Canada is a very large oil and gas producer, as an example, fourth largest in the world in terms of oil and gas. It represents a third, just producing the oil that we use and export is responsible for over 1/3 of Canada's entire greenhouse gas emissions. And when we say greenhouse gas emissions, we're referring to those gases that have a superpower. They hold heat. And increasingly, as we are burning gasoline as well as coal to generate electricity, that's phasing out a bit, but we still burn coal in Canada today, including in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. And the use of natural gas. A lot of natural gas is used in our industrial processes. It's used in home heating, not as much here in New Brunswick, but it's very common, say, for example, in Alberta and in Ontario. And so they're producing all this oil, this gas, this coal, and then what happens? Well, it's used primarily on the oil side to run our vehicles. So as we go to the gas station and we pump that gas into our vehicles, we're burning that gasoline. And every time we burn gasoline, we are adding more carbon dioxide through basically the combustion gases of that process into the air. We also generate emissions to the air through our home heating, whether that's through natural gas, as I mentioned, but as we know, in the Atlantic, we still have a lot of people heating with home heating oil. We also generate emissions in other ways, but the fossil fuel side, let's call it the energy side of the equation, is about 80% of the problem. The other 20% is what we're doing to the natural world through forestry activities, cutting trees, reducing the soil's capacity through various agricultural methods, forestry methods. We're reducing the Earth's ability to do what it does, which is through photosynthesis to actually absorb carbon dioxide. And as a result of all of that, if you start to move your eye up toward the tap, we're going to talk now about what's the implications of all that burning. Well, at this point in the world, we are producing enough pollution, carbon pollution, to generate over 50 billion tons of greenhouse gases every year. And you may have heard of different kinds of these gases. The primary ones are carbon dioxide, as I mentioned. Then there's methane, which is quite a powerful, but shorter lived gas. And then there's nitrous oxide. There's others, but those are the kind of primary. So we've got essentially a tap, and it's on, like we got that thing cranked right open. And so what's happening? Well, if you think about the fact that you can think about the world we live in, the atmosphere, as a bubble. You can think about the fact that we're kind of inside this bubble. We also can describe it in terms of a bathtub. And the reason we do that is that all of those emissions that are being generated are in excess of what the world can handle naturally. So about half of what we're generating is naturally absorbed by trees, plants, soils, and the oceans. In fact, the oceans are absorbing not only a lot of carbon dioxide, but they're reabsorbing, the oceans are absorbing what it is that these greenhouse gases do. Well, what do they do? Well, they have this like special superpower. They hold heat. So as we're generating these gases, normally we would have a balance between the energy coming into the earth and the energy leaving the earth. And what we're doing is unbalancing. The energy balance is off kilter, and we are holding more of this energy at the surface of the earth. And as a result of all of that, we are evaporating more water into the atmosphere. That's helping to supercharge weather events so that they are as unsafe as Hurricane Helene has just shown us again. And where we're thinking about this implication, like what is it that it means? It's very different than our normal pollution problems. You could reduce the pollution a bit and you see improvement. That's not the way that it is with climate change. Because we have half those emissions staying in the atmosphere every year, 25 billion this year, 25 billion more next year, 25 billion more next year, the tub is filling up. And you can see at the top of the tub that as it gets fuller, temperature increase starts to rise. We've already hit 1.5 degrees. We are well on our way to 2 to 3 degrees, which is catastrophic. And so the only way to stop this problem, we've got two things to do to turn off the tap. We have to help nature do what nature can do. Plant more trees, ecological restoration, protect our soils, improve the health of the oceans. But mostly we have to change our energy systems. We have to stop burning fossil fuels, switch over to more renewable electricity to power our lives, whether it's our transportation, our homes, our businesses, and so on. And as I said, we've got to do more ecological restoration. So just to close out on this set of ideas, unlike other environmental problems, we don't stop making the problems worse until we actually reduce global emissions down to more than half. And we don't stop adding warming, or we don't stop the process from continuing to contribute to our challenges until we get to zero emissions. And we need to be doing that in the next 20, 25 years. And of course, we're not on track for that. The implications of this are hotter conditions, wetter in storm events, drier in other events, but more unsafe weather. And that's what we'll now listen to Dr. Turcotte talk to us about in terms of what are the health implications of what we are doing in terms of unbalancing the atmosphere. Thank you. Stop sharing.
Thank you, Louise. I'm sure we'll be back to you with the questions that will follow. Our next presenter, Dr. René Turcotte, practiced medicine at the Family Medicine Unit, Moncton, Dieppe, at the University Hospital Center, the Dr. George Dumas Hospital, in Moncton and the Center of Formation Médicale de University of Moncton, where she taught, among other things, health and medicine of the ages. She's the founding president of the New Brunswick chapter of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment since 2021. She's also a member of the board of directors of La Solitude de Crédahou. Rennie is the mother of 4 young women, has 3 beautiful grandchildren, and 1 in the making. She lives with her husband in Moncton. Rennie, it's your turn.
Oh, thank you very much, Madeleine, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful webinar. So I'm going to talk about the effect of climate change on seniors' health. Next slide, please. Zaira, next slide, please. Okay, so the climate change will affect in many ways the life of people, and we'll talk more especially about senior people in different ways, like extreme weathers, like storms, ice storm, tropical storm, hurricane. Like Louise said, we see what's happening in south of in the state. It's harmful. So wildfires, also flooding, heat waves, food, alimentation, vector-borne disease, air pollution, and water quality. And there is some others, but we'll speak more about the health effect of these climate change hazards. Next slide, please, Zahira. So next slide, please. We're going to talk about extreme weathers like storm, ice storm, and hurricane, how it will affect our life. Next slide, please. So it affects our life by power outage, causing loss of food, a lot of stress and anxiety, also loss of money to replace food or repair damages to property. I said about loss of food because people cannot keep their fridge going on because of their freezer going on because of the power outage. Equipment failures. Some people are under O2 device and they cannot make them function. There is other failure equipment that people need for their health. Losing contact, like not being able to contact people with their cell phone or their land phone. Isolation, that causes again a lot of stress and anxiety. Loss of medication is important also because some medication like insulin needs to be kept in the fridge, and other medications should not freeze, should be kept in normal temperature. Freezing or overheating, dependent of the season, that's another consequence of the extreme weather. Intoxication, like people often forget they should not light up their little stove in their house because it will cause carbon monoxide poisoning, and people will start to have headache, nausea, and most of the time they don't even have any symptom, and they can die from that. Unfortunately, what happened to 2 old people in north of New Brunswick during the big ice storm that we had a few years ago. Also confusion secondary to cold or heat stroke. Wounds, because people can fall because they don't see in their house because of the power outage. It's slippery outside. They will fall, break their hip, break their arm. Or the storm itself can cause wounds or even death, like fallen trees or drowning in the flood, things like that. And people will ask themselves, am I going to lose my house? Where will I go if I lose my house? If I need to be evacuated, where will I go? Those are all anxious questions from senior mainly. Next slide, please. So wildfires, we had wildfires in 2013 north of New Brunswick, and 200 people were evacuated near Perth and Dover. Next slide, please. So wildfires will cause evacuation, and senior people often suffer because they have mobilization problem. Many are in a wheelchair. They will have destruction of their property and habitats. They will have insurance problem. If they might not even have insurance, they might not have had monies to cover for insurance, or the insurance won't cover because of the fire, or it will take years and years before they are covered. Injuries from the fire also, and from smoke inhalation. Smoke inhalation will cause a lot of problem, like exacerbation of pulmonary and heart condition. Smoke inhalation contain also a lot of chemical, because of all the burning of the houses and everything in the house. It causes chemical in the air, and that will cause also pulmonary problem and heart condition, and even stroke, can even cause stroke. Loss of medication and equipment also, a mental health problem like anxiety and depression because of the problem that was caused by wildfire doesn't go away. They don't have their house anymore, etc. No refugee, nowhere to go, no money, no paper, no clothes. They lose everything, lose their photos. Also, a big problem is limited access to essential supplies and services, limited access to hospital, limited access to a grocery store, etc. Not just caused by wildfires, but also by storm and flooding also. And sadly, loss of loved one, it happens, and even death from death for ourselves. Next slide, please. So flooding, a lot of people had suffered from that in New Brunswick, and many people knows the consequence of flooding. Next slide, Zaira, please. So with flooding, we will have also evacuation problem due to lack of mobility or means. Next slide, please. Lack of transportation. Many people have no car, no way to leave their place. The slide before, please. Nowhere else to go, nobody to call. They will feel alone, left alone. Lack of money to repair or rebuild, or like I said, with the fire, no insurance or lack of insurance, no help to clean. It's very discouraging to clean after have been being flood, and nobody to help us to repair. Loss of land, need to relocate because you are in a flooding zone. Anxiety due to damage or loss of goods and properties, or just the situation. Lack of sleep, confusion because of all that anxiety and that stress, depression, and also infectious disease due to water contamination or mold problem in the house. And like I said, death by drowning or other ways of caused by the flood. Next slide, please. Heat waves. We're going to talk about heat waves. Older people are like us are very hit with full force by climate change because of all that, and especially heat wave. Next slide, please. I don't know if you remember, but a lot of people died from the heat wave in BC a few years ago, at least 600 and even more. The heat wave affect older people because we have lack of cooling system in many houses and apartments, and even in senior housing. It causes difficulty to sleep and insomnia, dehydration. Many people don't know how to hydrate themselves, how often to drink. They might not even have access to a good supply of water during heat wave, especially the homeless people. Edema and cardiac failure because the heat, because of the heat, people cannot evacuate their heat, and the heart will pump more, so we'll have more difficulty to pump, and people will become swollen, and the heart won't be able to evacuate all that water. Worsening of asthma and chronic bronchitis or other health conditions during a heat wave, and even brain injury caused by the heat that we cannot evacuate. Our body cannot evacuate the heat because it's too hot outside and too humid, and it causes confusion and anxiety, and the worst of it will be heat stroke and death. It's not very funny, my talk, isn't it? Next slide, please. But that's the reality of climate change. Next slide will be about alimentation. Like you see in that photo, there's a lack of a shortage of food. Next slide, please. Shortage of food caused by crop failures, secondary to drought or too much rain. So it will cause a food shortage, like I said, even change in crop variety. Will we be able to eat strawberries in the future? Lack of variety because the plants are changing and we cannot grow the food that we were growing before. Increased cost of food because of that. Like, we already see that the food is very very expensive now, and if you go up north, it's even more expensive. And malnutrition secondary to all that, because older people have less money to buy food that is even that is more costly, and also the lack of variety. And people have difficulty with their teeth, and they have problem digesting food. So we see malnutrition also caused by climate change, and loss of access to traditional hunting territories for First Nation people. Next slide, please. Another plague of climate change are the increase of vector-borne disease like the tick and the mosquitoes. Next slide, please. The tick, like that one you saw, the black-legged tick, will cause Lyme disease, and we see more and more Lyme disease across the country, especially in Nova Scotia and south of New Brunswick. I'll show you a map of the distribution of the risk in New Brunswick after that. Another disease caused by ticks is anaplasmosis, and we see more and more of that disease. It's a disease of the blood. And there is other disease caused by tick bites. Hantavirus is an infection caused by a rodent, and since there is more rodent because of the climate change, there will be more of that infection, will be more subject to that infection. But now, actually, we don't see very much of it. The same thing with the West Nile virus, which is caused by mosquitoes bite. We see a little bit more, but not that much yet. But we will see more and more of that. Increased risk of zoonoses transmitted from animals to humans. Zoonoses are the infection and disease of the animal, but they are transmitted to humans. Everybody remember COVID-19 that was caused by wild animals that were brought into market. It's more and more knowledge now that's the cause of COVID-19. Other disease like avian flu also that comes from the bird and that can be transmitted to human. There was a lot of a disaster in Quebec with the ducks farms and turkey farms because of that. And also with this disease come pandemia. So we'll see more and more, and I don't have to tell you more about pandemia. We're still experiencing one. It's not a pandemia anymore, but it's still there. So next slide, please. We see you'll see a map of the Lyme disease estimated risk, and the risk category are based on historical Lyme disease case data and tick active and passive surveillance data. And the south, you see the paler color is the lower risk. Like if you see at the top of New Brunswick, it's north of New Brunswick, it's less risk, but it's still there. But you see in the southwest New Brunswick, the risk is very high of catching Lyme disease. Next slide, please. Next climate hazard is air pollution. Next slide, please. Louise talked a little bit about air pollution. It causes asthma, increased asthma, and other respiratory illnesses. Allergies are on the rise because of pollen, eye, nose, and throat irritation, lung cancer, and brain tumor. Cardiovascular disease is on the rise also, and premature death. If Canada meets its climate target, we will save an estimated of 112,000 lives between 2030 and 2050 due to air quality improvement alone. Next slide, please. I'm almost done. We'll talk about water quality. Next slide, please. As you see that the water from that house is not very good to drink. Risk of disease caused by bacteria and parasites in water. gastrointestinal infections secondary to alga proliferation and also the bacteria. Drinkable water sources are contaminated by rainwater, flooding, frost, and thaw, and will face water scarcity more and more. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, some people are more at risk of poor health outcomes from climate change, and the risk factors include low socioeconomic income status, age, very young or advanced age, pre-existing health condition, and geographic location. So as you can see, we're not affected just because of our age, but we're affected because we answer to all these conditions as we get older. Next slide, please. So that's all. Thank you very much. You can find a lot of information on the Public Health Action on Climate Change in Canada, the report of the Chief Public Health Officer of Canada. Thank you, and merci. Well, Aline. Madeleine, you're muted.
Our final presenter is Jane Van Horn, a dedicated retired nurse who served the Campbellton Nursing Home for 40 years. Throughout her long and fulfilling career, Jane provided compassionate care to countless residents, always bringing warmth and professionalism to her work. Jane enjoys reflecting on her decades of service and remains a passionate advocate for increased senior care, striving to ensure the elderly can age in place with dignity and grace. Jane, it's your time.
Thank you, Madeleine, and good afternoon, everyone. Very sobering thoughts here, Renee. I am among experts and very much humbled. I'd like to express regret at missing my time at the legislature with you all this afternoon. It was a success, and it's a wonderful thing that the team is doing here in New Brunswick, and I know that you cannot give up. I'm just learning about all of the movements that are afoot the last month. I'll give you a little COVID story and a plug as a nurse. I didn't get there because of my husband and I contracting COVID for the first time since the pandemic. And it's a real and present problem in not only New Brunswick, but across the country. So all I can say is wear your masks, hand wash, and make sure your vaccines and boosters are up to date. I again want to applaud the efforts of everyone here in New Brunswick, but also nationally. It's amazing that we've reached a point where seniors can come together as a team and have these initiatives launched. And I sure hope that they'll continue, if not annually, more than once a year. And having it happen today on the heels of yesterday's Day of Reconciliation is excellent timing in my mind. So I was surprised by the invitation to speak, but it came about because I reached out to the New Brunswick Conservation Council through a survey. Thank you, Madeleine, at Stepping Stones. And in those inquiries, speaking with both Mo and Faith, the invitation was given to me to speak because my husband and I have lived in two very different home situations, and we've had to deal with climate change in both settings. I retired from Campbellton Nursing Home, a 100-bed nursing home, 7 years ago. So I'd like to close my hopefully 13 minutes only presentation with a little bit of comment about seniors in nursing homes. All right, so we lived in Campbellton for over 40 years, and we bought our home in Campbellton in 1982. And it's a beautiful brick home on a hill with $1 million view, but unfortunately large windows, which in our time we were unable to even think about replacing. The lack of insulation was a factor. In the early years, climate change wasn't so bad. Yes, the summers were warm, but we had the beauty of wind, and we would put our windows up at night, have lots of good air circulation, and we coped with the house absorbing the heat of the summer. Wasn't quite so comfortable in the winter because wind was not our friend. And so we put on extra sweaters, piled the extra blankets on the beds, and got through northern New Brunswick winters. When we came close to retirement, we started to look at the skyrocketing costs for energy. The power rates were going up, and we were not able to make some of the more major changes that we wanted to make. So our daughter bought our home, thankfully, and she installed mini splits in the home, and it's made a huge difference in the cost of her energy at that house. The house that we bought in 82 was originally operating with an oil-fired furnace, and it was heating a baseboard hot water system. So what we did with the grants and loans that were available at that time through the government is we converted to an electric furnace. And so we had cleaner energy. And we're doing basically the same thing here in Fredericton. So fate brought us to Fredericton in 2022. My mom passed away, and my youngest brother and I took ownership of the home. And my brother, hello, brother, you're here from England on this webinar today, and wife. It's great to see you, and thank you for pushing the idea of a ducted heat pump, because in this older home here in Fredericton, mini splits were not an option. We did ask an expert. He came in, and he was not able to find a location that would that mini splits would help, because it's not an open concept. And so we continued on with the idea of the ducted heat pump, and it's been a godsend. And that's why I'm putting a plug in for these types of changes to seniors' homes. The home here in the summer of 2022 was being heated and cooled with an energy efficient furnace. The furnace in the summer would emit cooler air throughout the house, but not enough to overcome the heat. And so I was worried. I certainly identify with the anxiety seniors feel at times in settings when you're living alone or in a home. Anyway, we proceeded to have the ducted heat pump installed, and the improvement is just mind-boggling in my mind. It's been beautiful the last 2 summers. The house is cool in the summer. We don't keep it really cool, but it's cool, and it's warm enough in the winter. So I hope and pray that there will be more encouragement for seniors to age in place in their own homes whenever possible, and be able to have benefits such as we are enjoying through government grants and no interest loans. We have a loan for 10 years. It's very doable, and it allowed us to install the heat pump. Just going to refer to my notes here for a minute. We did take advantage of the assessments of the government funds, and it was a foregone conclusion in those assessments that we would either put in mini split or ducted heat pump. We had this assessment done at both our house in Campbellton and also here in Fredericton. So assuming that we would be putting in the heat pump, the focus was on changing up your exterior doors to be more energy efficient, adding insulation, and replacing your windows. The windows here in our home in Fredericton were changed at least once during its life. And so we're not focusing so much on that right now, but we will work on these things as time goes on. The changes have resulted in major dollar savings. And I went back into our bank records and pulled out the costs to NB Power, and I was shocked at the amount of savings, and passed that information on through a summary document to both Mo and Faith at the New Brunswick Conservation Council, and you're more than welcome to have a peek at that if you want. So I would like to close with a little comment about seniors in nursing homes. We tend to want to institutionalize many of our seniors. I personally feel we should try to assist them to age in place with good support. It's going to save the government a lot of money, and it's also going to make us healthier seniors, less anxious, more adaptable, and able to cope with some of the changes that Renee has highlighted here. In the nursing homes, the older homes in New Brunswick at present, I don't think many of them have air conditioning. And when the home that I worked in was constructed in 1977, they felt that air conditioners would make the atmosphere too cold for the seniors. Well, guess what? Climate change has totally reversed that. And now we're looking at nursing homes that are too hot, and the frail, older, elderly residents are now not comfortable at all. And picture the staff trying to nurse and help these people bathe in moist, hot tub rooms. It's not the way to go. So I'm hoping that if we pursue the idea of aging in place, we can hopefully save the government dollars, and then our job is to make sure that those dollars are redirected towards some energy saving strategies for seniors that live at home, and also to allow these older homes to upgrade. And I do believe that we need to look very closely at having proper ventilation systems in the newer constructs. I see Renee nodding. I'm sure that you've had experience, Renee, in some of those settings that I speak of. So that's about all I have to say. I'm speaking to you as a senior and sharing our two situations. We've done it. We're happy that we remain in our own home, but we couldn't do it without the support of our family. So that's maybe the last little piece of the puzzle. When you talk about isolation, Renee, during these climate events, we have to make it easy for our families to support us. And the government maybe should give more attention to allowing families to help vulnerable seniors remain at home that might otherwise just be shunted into institutional care. Thanks for listening. We've tried to create enough space here in the webinar for lots of questions and dialogue. So let's dialogue.
And thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing in the past expertise of your nursing with thoughts for all of us over what the situations are like in nursing homes. Okay, as Jane said, we've allowed for time for questions, and let's open it up and share.
Just start by just letting you know, letting you know that Faith has just put into the chat the link to the video case study that they have produced featuring Jane and what they have done in their home. So you can look into it, click on that and watch that video at your leisure to learn more about what they've done.
Thanks, Louise.
And if you're, I'm just looking here, if you're feeling shy about putting your hand up, don't, if you want to unmute and just ask your question. If you can't find the chat and you just want to speak, go for it.
Could I respond to Fred? I just see his comment about many grants being available. And that is true, Fred. And I think what probably needs to happen is that seniors have to be helped to take advantage of those grants. Some people don't even know they exist even yet. So definitely, we need to take advantage of those grants that are available. Thank you.
I noticed along the way that some of the questions were being answered. Is there anything any of you want to bring forward again in case anyone missed it?
I should
I'm-
say that somebody put, I think it's Louise, put in the link to my to the report of the Chief Officer of Public Health Canada in the chat. Also, somebody asked if we are going to see more and more of these vector-borne disease. Yes, as Louise answered in the chat, we'll see more and more because, like Louise said, they're not killed by winter anymore because our winters are less cold. They might be killed 1 year if we have a colder winter, but they're coming from the south. They're moving up. They're moving up. Not just in New Brunswick, but Ontario, BC, many provinces.
And I might just say or add, because I've been doing this work for 33 years. Renee's presentation was kind of overwhelming, eh? to think about all of that. And there are things we can do to be more prepared. I mean, on the one hand, there's our contribution to our own health and safety in terms of the energy that we use and the things that we can do that way. But we also have to prepare for more extreme weather. And so it's really important to think about preparedness, to have a 72-hour kit, where you have food in the house for a few days, where you have water. One of the things we know in our house, we live in a rural environment. When the power goes out, we don't have any water. We don't have a heat pump. We don't have the capacity to pump. And so we've always got pails of water. When we know an event is coming, we make sure there's pails of water. We can always flush the toilet. We can always boil water and have our coffee, which is kind of important.
Yes.
And so those 72-hour kits, in fact, I'd go as far as to say that the longer you feel you can be prepared by having ready-made meals, whether it's cans of food or whatever, up to 2 weeks in some events. If you recall the ice storm, it was up to I think 2 weeks before we got help. Hurricane Arthur, nobody came to help us in the rural locations. We had to be very self-sufficient, and I do know that over time, what's happening is we're relying more and more and more on the volunteer fire departments. I actually think we should stop calling them fire departments because they're actually emergency services help. And so, think about those things in terms of how you can be prepared. There's lots of information about flood-proofing your home, about adding shade around your home, lots of things that we can do to support that preparedness piece. I see Pam had her hand up, and then why don't you go, Pam, and then we'll look at what came in and the questions here.
Hello, everybody. As Jane was talking about aging in place, I just wanted to put out a program that is available all through New Brunswick called Nursing Homes Without Walls. I'm in the Port Elgin area in New Brunswick, and we started that pilot 5 years ago. And now there's over 16 offices across New Brunswick where people can find out all about the programs that are available through the government. They also get help with filling out the forms, but also the program exists to help seniors to remain in their homes. And the actual facilitator will go in and do an assessment of the safety of your home, including energy, and also the information that you need for your health and well-being to stay in your home. So Nursing Homes Without Walls has been addressing this, but it has spread widely throughout the province. And certainly the forms that are necessary to complete for assistance with heating and air conditioning are complicated. And also it is, there is a financial level that is used to help. It can either be a loan or it can be a grant if you're on low income. So I just wanted to put that out there, that if you're aware of Nursing Homes Without Walls in your area, they're available to assist people in remaining in their home.
Oh, thank you, Pam. I'm so glad that you raised that because I believe that that's the wish for all of us in our senior years. And actually, one has now opened in Fredericton through the York Care Center. So yes, thank heavens that there's more and more of them in place.
If I may speak, somebody asked if we can talk about medication during hazard event, especially like in COVID, it was not easy. I suggest, you'll talk also if you have other suggestions. I suggest that you have at least 3 months supply of your medication. For most of the medication, you can get them for 3 months at a time. So if you can buy them for 3 months at a time, you'll and keep them in a safe place, not necessarily in your bathroom cupboard, but keep them like Louise said, you prepare a kit, a 72 kit, so make sure your medication is not far from that kit, and also having a kind of a little cooler with something to put in it, like a bag, a freezing bag, if you have medication that need to be kept cold. So in case of a power outage, you can make sure that your insulin or other medication that need to be kept cold is stay in good condition. You can prepare yourself when they will announce a storm. Just make sure you go through your little kit and make sure you're well prepared. Prepare your candles. Prepare many things for that for the coming storm. And also talk to your neighbors. If you live in a house or if you live in an apartment, talk to your neighbors. Make connection with your neighbors. Make sure they knows about you. And I have a friend, she called one of our other friends, they call each other every day, just to make sure the other one hasn't fall, is not dead or something didn't happen to her. And they don't talk very long. They just say, are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. Okay, goodbye. Bye. And we told her, okay, next time if she's not there, you can call us also. So we're on a triangle to triangle support. So make sure you connect with your neighbors. So you build up community support. It's very important. The community is very important. And also we suggest go to your municipality council, talk to them about preparedness. Ask them what are their action plan for in case of crisis, in case of talk to them about what are their action plans for climate change, and also the preparedness, because they have to prepare for what Louise was talking about, the fire department. They have to prepare for the ambulance. They have to prepare for anything. So push them. Today is Senior for Climate Action Now. So push them to act and move.
Any?
Oh.
Got
Jane, you're on mute.
We signed up for the registry in Fredericton. Madeline, perhaps you could speak to that a little bit.
Yes, there were some flyers available today too. That's between the fire department and EMO is the registry for seniors in disaster situations. so that they're the first that are contacted or approached to make sure that they're safe. So whether, especially seniors who are living alone, it doesn't matter if you have family in the area, you are still able to register and be followed in all of those situations. I think the other thing that we can't help but mention is that every time there's elections, we all know, and the politicians know, and the media know, that seniors vote in very high numbers. In the 80%, even say, and then when you consider that 26% of the population is seniors, we have to do it. The time is now. There's an election coming up in New Brunswick. And at the legislature today, that was quite clear, great big block wet letters, we vote. And I loved it. So certainly I'm hoping the politicians were watching, and I'm sure the media picked it up, and it will see it. Anything further?
I'm going to hop in here. I don't know. Oh, so Renee, do you want to say something else?
Oh,
There's just a minute left, but I'm happy to stay. We're happy to stay a little bit longer if you feel that we need to.
Talking about election and fracking. If you want to know more about the effect of fracking on your health, there will be a webinar on October 9 in the evening, 7:30 p.m. And I just put the link to the Facebook site where you can register.
Oh, thanks. That's great, Renee. Well, it looks like if there are no further questions, I want to, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, somebody wrote in the chat, will anyone be willing to speak to the question of ways in which we could reevaluate our relationship with capitalism in order to address climate change problems for everyone and seniors too? I don't know if somebody wants to discuss that.
It's a big question.
Whoa, yes.
Let's just say that after 33 years of working on this issue, capitalism has done nothing to help solve climate change. Just saying. And that, if there ever was a time for us to be supportive of stronger interventions by government in terms of regulating big industrial polluters, ensuring that regulations are set to make our buildings more efficient and to make our cars more efficient and to phase out fossil fuels and to invest in renewable energy. This is the moment. Think of the kinds of investments that were happening in the 1950s after World War II, the complete renewal of all of our infrastructure, the massive expansion of our energy systems. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about, this is the investment opportunity of a generation to create a safe environment for future generations. And that's going to take social investment. Yes, we can make it profitable for industry to do things, but through regulation. They're not here to help us get this show on the road through the goodness of their hearts. This needs to be an incentive that is driven by the regulated environment, and we are at risk of losing that if we don't vote with climate in mind, if we don't tell politicians we expect them to do something that's important when they're elected, and that is to govern. So I know we're at the end here in terms of this big conversation, but in fact, I think climate change tells us, and justice tells us, that if we're going to have a socially inclusive, a socially responsible transition for climate change, that we need more government, not less. We've got one question here about health effects of glyphosate, Renee, and maybe then we can wrap up if that's okay. Do you want to speak to that, Renee?
Yeah, the one that is more known is the lymphoma, the cancer of the lymphatic tissue. That's the one that have been related to glyphosate. But I have to review studies about that. That's the one that come to my mind right now. But glyphosate is also killing. It's killing the trees, the leaves of the trees. So it's killing also all the animal that live there, the fauna and kill also all the other plants that are around. So it's causing a lot of damages. And but regarding our health, I think it has been linked also to Parkinson disease. I'm not sure though. I don't want to advance that in. But I know that pesticides have been linked to Parkinson disease. I don't remember if glyphosate has been linked directly like other pesticides. So there's a fight also against spreading pesticide and glyphosate in New Brunswick. Glyphosate has been banned in Quebec province. But we can have another seminar on glyphosate if you want. That's a whole subject. I hope it answers your question.
Thank you.
I just had,
Go ahead.
yeah,
Kate.
relating to the glyphosate, I just wanted to just make a comment. I've been hearing and reading that quite a bit of our gut health issues are related to our oats and wheat and all that stuff being sprayed by glyphosate as a desiccant, as the part of the production thing. And so we're hearing a lot of people getting affected by glyphosate related issues. Yeah, through like gut health.
Thank you, Jane, Louise, and Renee, and Zahir in the background, and everyone who registered. Thank you so much. You'll be receiving a copy of the recording. And I was just thinking, because I raised the issue of all of us voting, I know that there were questions for politicians that were available today at the legislature, and I couldn't remember where I put mine, but perhaps we could, if we're sending out the recording, perhaps we could make a note of that for everyone who registered. Thanks again, and our time is up. It's just been an amazing day. Let's do it again. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.